And then as I was describing it, and that's exactly what's going on with me and exactly why I called you, because this has been all day. Like, I don't understand what's going on, We were able to connect, and she, told me a few things, and she brought about, like, that me switching my life up in such a way that, like, my brain chemistry might be affected by some of these changes that I made, and I wasn't aware of that, so they gave me a bit of insight, and it allowed for me to have, like, oh.
Stories are powerful.
Welcome to the Rise, Recover, Live podcast, brought to you by The Phoenix. This is a space where people impacted by substance use can come to share their story of strength and resilience, get open and honest, and inspire hope and build community through shared experience.
We'll be talking to people in our community on their own recovery journey and shine a light on the topic of recovery in all its forms. Maybe you'll hear some of your story in theirs.
Let's show the world that together we rise, recover, and live.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Rise, Recover, Live podcast. We are your hosts, Bryce the Third, he, him pronouns.
And Liz McKean, she, her pronouns.
What's up, Liz? Who do we have as a guest today?
We have Liz McKean and Bryce the Third.
Wonderful solo episode, a virtual one. We're not next to each other, but I feel like we're still off of the energy of being next to each other. We just got back from Colorado at the NADAC conference, and so I think I'm still riding high off of like being near you physically, so I can pull from that energy for this episode.
Definitely. It's my favorite when we get to be in person. It's so much fun. And yeah, it does. It makes these moments feel closer just because we had that time. And I also really love that, like, the energy we have here translates. Like sometimes there's some friendships that like really work well in one medium, and then in others just feels like a little like we're just like our cheese has been moved. And I don't know. I think we take our cheese wherever we go.
Do you feel? So are you saying that our friendship transcends mediums?
It transcends mediums. It sure does.
Oh my goodness, that is probably one of the sweetest things anybody has ever said to me.
Really? Oh my gosh, it's so true. Very genuine.
How's your energy today?
Let's see. I guess I'm looking forward to it settling in this conversation. I feel like usually when we talk, it feels grounding, and knowing that we are kind of sharing this space with the community and everyone who's listening is grounding. It's been a really busy week, which it's like, I can always tell it's busy when, first of all, my clothes are all over the floor and dishes aren't done. And then also when you ask me that question and I'm like, this is the first time I've thought about that in days, It's just been go to the next thing. So I guess my energy is whatever the opposite of grounded is, but it's headed in that direction. We're coming in for a landing. How's yours?
So one, thank you for being so transparent and honest. And I think this is going to be a transparent and honest episode because I am going through it. I love, because when you host something or when you do a lot of front-facing stuff and you build community, I think sometimes the community, because I've been a part of communities, sometimes the community, and I'm like always joining new communities, and sometimes the people within the communities can like make the mistake of like putting the person who organized the community on a pedestal, or like, okay, he's, they have this thing when it comes to like thought leadership, the authority in the field. And I'm just like super anti all that. Like, I do believe in building businesses. I do believe in a business that revolves around the thought process of an individual if it ends up being that, like, turning out that way. But I'm really a believer in community, so much so that anytime I'm on stage, if I had the opportunity to jump off a stage, like, I really just want to be in the crowd, like in amongst the people, because it's important that we all know that nobody is elevated. And I think the best people that I've ever tapped into their teachings, that like they're transparent and honest about their experience as they're having the experience. And right now, like, I'm going through it. And I think, while we were off camera, I think where we wanted to lean was like kind of having a conversation around co-occurring. I guess it would help if I would be able to say it. Co-occurring.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, co-occurring disorder. And for me, I'm diagnosed ADHD. That's been a whole conversation for me as well. So yeah, I don't even know where you want to start this conversation at. I think.
Yeah. Well, first, I think I just want to second what you said when it comes to, the importance of feeling like you're on the same page with the community. I know some of my favorite podcasts when I love our podcast with guests. So I just say that we love our guests and love those conversations. And I love my favorite podcasts when they have guests, but often when it is just the hosts, they just it's like there's I don't know, kind of a informality to it that feels like you really are just like listening in on a conversation that would happen anyways, which is, I think, what we hope to do today and what I hope we do, often. And I'm really grateful that you brought up this topic because it's important to me too. I also have several co-occurring mental health diagnoses that I've talked about. And I mean, I want to hear about what is going on with you. So I think as far as where to start, I would just love to hear like how are you feeling today? I mean, you talked about your energy a little bit, but like, can we go a little deeper?
Yeah, I mean, so first and foremost, I think that conversation that would have happened anyway. And when we're talking about like a relationship, a friendship that transcends mediums, most of our conversations happen without a mic happening. So these are just conversations that Liz and I have regardless. And I think it's dope that, we're in a position to be able to cut the mic on and share the insights that we're able to have with each other, with you all, that maybe we can create community today. Maybe we can use our experiences to shortcut the process of understanding, because I feel like there's a bit of understanding that I've had to have around some of the things that I've experienced. But yeah, yesterday, and maybe even the day before, because I had this experience of like being in the water, but not knowing that I was in the water. And somebody, my girl, she had brought up yesterday that the day before when I went over her house, like I was like, I'm feeling a bit crazy. And like it was this thing where I was leaving the house to go to her house, and like I was already running late. Like I was already in that thing where like time doesn't even feel like anything right now. So whatever. But then the beating myself up for being late because I said I'd be there at a specific time. And then having the runway to that time, knowing that time was coming up, but like not moving in time to make it on time. But then like I got all my stuff in the car and was headed out the door, and I just caught this bug about how my pants did not match my jacket. And that took like another 10 to 15 minutes to like get out the house. And what I ended up doing was I grabbed another jacket that would potentially keep my pants and my jacket from clashing. Didn't put it on, but I grabbed it like, let me take this just in case, and put it in the car in the back seat. Never wore it. Still showed up with my pants and my jacket that I felt didn't match. And then when I got there, one of the first things I said was, I'm feeling crazy. My pants don't match my jacket. And then after I talked to her yesterday, like she's like, yeah, I didn't think anything of it when you said the pants and jacket thing. But like now that you shared a bit of what happened like yesterday, it's like, oh, it kind of, that follows the theme. And I quit. I cut down on caffeine. Used to do like a whole bunch of caffeine daily. Really just wanted to experience a dopamine detox, which is a term for where like you isolate certain things to figure out like what brings you fulfillment and not fulfillment. Things that get me excited. Caffeine is like excitement in a cup of coffee. So it's like I just wanted to see like what naturally gets me excited, and if I took a sabbatical from those like the artificial excitement, if I could really like tap into the things that are super meaningful, and take away some of those peaks and hopefully get rid of some of those dips. And I mentioned it on the show too. That's been about like 7-8 days now. But yesterday it just caught up to me, and I ended up calling a friend of mine, and she was like, "Why you quit caffeine?" And I'm like, I told her my reasoning, and so she has a son who, when he was young, he was diagnosed ADHD, and he didn't want to take meds for ADHD, and so it was suggested that they give him coffee. And they gave him coffee because like caffeine helps with the ADHD. And so like making this transition in my life, I may have it potentially also know that this show is not in any way like any giving medical advice or anything like that. This is just
We
like
are not doctors. Yeah.
but that could have been the reasoning for what I experienced yesterday, which yesterday, like I sat down multiple times to get things done. I would sit down to like, okay, this is my intention. And then before I know it, I would look up and I would be doing something totally different. Like for example, when it got really bad, I had left the house. The purpose to leave the house was to go take a walk because I knew I needed to go outside because I had been inside all day. Ended up in my car driving with my backpack to go capture and create content. I called a friend because it's like, okay, at this point, like there has to be like something happening. I just need to like put a space between me and this experience because all day it's been this. Like I left the house and then I ended up and I'm going, where am I going? When I called her, it rang once and I was like, oh, you know what? I should order a chicken salad. So then I hung up and then I picked up the phone and like placed the order for carryout for this chicken for 2 salad. And then I got off the phone with them and then I called her back and she like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, oh yeah, probably what I did was, I just called you for a second, but then I thought about it. I need to get this chicken salad because I figured our phone conversation might take a little bit. By the time we get off the phone, the chicken salad will be done. So, and then as I was describing it, and that's exactly what's going on with me and exactly why I called you because this has been all day. Like, I don't understand what's going on, We were able to connect and she, told me a few things and she brought about like, that notion of like the caffeine, like me switching my life up in such a way that like I'm my brain chemistry might be affected by some of these changes that I made, and I wasn't aware of that. So they gave me a bit of insight, and it allowed for me to have like, oh, and historically, I've been like against like diagnosis, like I've been against like don't call me nothing because I know how powerful the words I am is. So I don't want to be diagnosed because now that means that I have this thing, or now that means like now, they confirmation bias. Like if you give me this container, I will look at my entire life through this container. Well, I did that because I'm ADHD, or I did that because I'm this, or and it's like, nah, I'm whatever I say I am, but what having these conversations has allowed for me to do is define the playing field, give me language that allows for me to seek tools in alignment with what it is that I'm experiencing. Because when a lot of times, like somebody will say something and then I'll look it up and it's like, that is exactly my experience. And, I'm just more, y'all who've listened to this show, y'all know I'm like solutions oriented. I will take that and because there's this experience that we could have of like leaning into this thing and it's like, okay, neurodivergent, cool. Okay, overstimulated, great. Okay, executive dysfunction, perfect. But now I take these terminologies and that's all I'm using. Like, oh, that's executive dysfunction. Oh, I'm neurodivergent. Oh, I'm overstimulated. But it's like, I need the language for the solution. You know what I'm saying? Because I want to use the solution language more than I want to use like the diagnosis language. I need more of the solution in my life. So what discovering this language and having these conversations around ADHD has allowed for me to do is discover the tools that aid me in being able to show up for life on life's terms. That's the biggest gift that recovery has allowed me is the ability to be able to show up for life as it is. And, being, practicing complete abstinence due to like the foundation of my recovery, which is 12-step, like it has embedded in me and planted the seeds in me. I don't need nothing. Don't give me nothing. I'm a thug it out, like life on life's terms exactly as I am natural. And that really helps a lot of times, like 95% of the time, that's absolutely perfect. And it allows for me to show up for life however life presents itself to me to be. And that 5% of the time, I think it can make me a bit ornery and like not receptive to maybe what else can help. And in this experience of like abstinence, I've kind of gained more context on like why I used in the first place, like why I was trying to like, use something to be creative, or use something else to go to sleep, or use something else to be cool and like less anxious, or use something that like I would just use these different things to feel different ways. Because like I would like there was this experience that I was having that I didn't feel like was the quote unquote right experience. So that's where I am today. And I'm experiencing a little bit of that runoff from yesterday to today. And I don't know, at this point, like compassion is big for me, like learning how to be easy on myself, and community has allowed for that. Like, I called you yesterday. I called my other friend in my 12-step program, and just that reminder of like, yo, like you're doing really good stuff. You're doing really good work, and you're being really conscious and intentional about how it is that you show up. And sometimes you're going to glitch, and it's gonna be worse if you beat yourself up in the middle of that glitch. Like you just gonna ramp up. So I don't take any medication. I was prescribed medication, and I tried it for a little bit, and I just didn't like feeling like it wasn't me. So there's that line that I teeter between like being honorary, but also like I just don't like the way this feels. You know what I'm saying? Like I like to be able to show up and not have to like wake up in the morning and take something and I'm here now. Like that's too reminiscent of like my experience in active addiction. And I don't really want that. So I don't know. I mean, the journey continues. I had, life continues to life. Like I was telling you off camera, I found out a guy that I used to work with when I was doing recovery coaching passed away. Young guy about my age, in the creative circuit here in Detroit. He was doing comedy. I want to say his name, but I don't want to say his name like on this public platform. But I will say his name just in general, because if you don't say their name, they die twice. But like maybe that might have to settle in here in a bit, and but life keeps lifing. So it's like, how do I? And I have a professional responsibility, so it's like I got to show up for the things that are required for me in my position at the Phoenix, and dance today. So fatherhood continues to, what I'm saying, and this weekend we thinking about going to the apple orchard. So it's just like life continues, and I think having compassion to be able to continue to show up. But there was a reason why I used. I went on this show, and then I'll be done with but I went on this show that really kind of changed my mindset around how I looked at my addiction. Being in 12-step, and I love 12-step to go to this day. Go to my home group. Like I'm really not as embedded as I used to be in the community, but I'm in the community. But like coming up in recovery in 12-step, I embodied this like, oh, like I used because like I almost demonized it. And I understand why we do that, because we need to scare ourselves from like not wanting that to happen. You said off camera like about that story about Cynthia and the guy, and then you used the words, eventually he caught up to him. And like I wanted to like say something when you said that, because like no, like the rhetoric of it catches up to you. Like that's the fear rhetoric that like no, there's nothing I'm running from. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's the compassion that I've had to have for myself, like in my personal recovery. But like in 12-step, there could be this thing where like there's this rhetoric of I was just a lowdown. I'll do this. I didn't care about nobody but myself. I was a low down, dirty, drunk and addict, and so I went on this show, and I didn't even have that rhetoric. It was just like I'm a person, like I'm an alcoholic, I'm an addict, I belong to this 12-step, and my natural inclination is to like run away from life and all these things, and so I've had to learn how to build stuff on top of that inclination that is like a secondary. Like I had to do things that were against my nature before they became second nature. So I could have that entire psychic change. He was like, no, that's not your natural state. Like, and like, I kind of wanted to fight him when he said that. He was like, you were just trying to modulate your nervous system. You didn't have no other tools. Like you took the tools that was handed to you culturally and used what you seen people around you using to be able to modulate your nervous system. Like that's not your natural state. Your natural state is peace and calm. And when he said that, like, I wanted to fight him because of what was given to me from our 12-step program. And it took me I just watched it again recently. And I'm like, he's kind of right. He's kind of right. So I don't know. The journey continues, and I'm learning to show up and be compassionate for my process.
Thank you for sharing all of that. I think there's probably plenty of people that are like doing the thing, and you hear somebody share something that's in your head that's like in part of your story that you're just like really felt alone in, or maybe you hadn't even really put words to it yet. And suddenly it's just like, oh my gosh, it's not just me. It's like a giant exhale. Yeah. So that's, I think, a big deal it's really generous to talk about it. And it's also a thing that I really love about us and about our community that we get to be part of, about the community that continues to grow, is that we're talking about this because it's so easy to not, it's so easy to be scared too. Another thing we were talking about a little bit off camera is like, how it's also sometimes recovery can feel like a judgy place. And I don't know if that's like, I'm afraid to even say that out loud because it can feel like, if I share this little part of me, it could get shut down. I could have somebody else very easily say, even just, because we're talking to these microphones, somebody could be listening and they could be shaking their head. No, like, absolutely not. Everything you're saying is wrong. I disagree. And, and that's a threat to my recovery. And so stop saying it, and that's really hard for me. And so when people share honestly, it makes me feel like it's okay to be having my experience and to have that compassion for myself, and maybe to notice if the moments that I'm getting judgy, which never happens, as you know, I've never been judgy. That's a lie. Yeah. And, just for what it's worth, like, I was diagnosed with ADHD late in life too. It took a long time to even seek out that diagnosis because I felt like I was taking up space that I didn't deserve to take up. And then when medication was on the table, I actually do take medication. And it's been something that I've wrestled with because there's, I know that there's people that wouldn't agree with that. And I have had both my doctor and my husband say to me on several occasions, why do you resist so hard doing something that's going to help you? And I think it's because for a long time, the thing that I was doing that I thought was helping me was a thing that was also killing me and ruining my life and the lives of people around me. So it's even years in, don't know if I always totally trust that the thing that's helping me is actually okay to be doing and having. And then I get to hear you talk about your experience and have your full self show up, not only when it's you and me just talking on the phone as friends, but also when there's a microphone in front of us. like a few minutes ago when we were talking on the microphone and Bryce like, hit record and we're in it. And that not only makes me feel like, okay, then, I'm less alone and there's others out here that are going to maybe feel empowered too. And they hear what you're experiencing and what I've experienced, but also some of that kind of residual shame that can be a barrier to living life to the fullest in recovery, which is the reason we did recovery and do recovery every single day, that starts to break those down. So
yeah, I think it's important to be patient and honest with ourselves around what it is that we're willing to disclose. Mm-hmm. I've seen people like, okay, well, they say to be honest and open and transparent, so let me share this, and they're not ready to share that, and it does more harm than it does good. So everybody has to have that conversation with themselves, like what do you need for you? The reason I share, like, in full disclosure, like Liz was like, we don't have to record an episode today. And before she got through that sentence, I'm hitting record. Boop. Because it's like, for me, is really worked to like share these things as I go through it, because the authenticity of the share is like it's not over processed. Like I'm not like, waiting until I have it all figured out before I can share it really prevents me from being super authentic. So like sharing it with you all in the middle of like me figuring it out, like I don't have a solution. I just want to share that this has been the process. I think for me, if I heard that, it's like, okay, you know, then my process is cool too. You know, like I don't have to have it all together. And so like that's why I think it's just important to share. And then also for me, it helps me. Like it's, you know, we talk on the show, we say it a lot, a selfish selflessness, where uh, we were talking last night, Liz, and another insight that I had was Liz and I are great at like things.
Your toss. Yeah.
Like there's things that Liz is great at that like I'm not the best at because it doesn't come supernatural to me. And then there's things that Liz has expressed that I'm great at that like she admires about me, you know? And one of the things I'm good at is give me a mic. Like we could be in front of 1 million people on stage with the president of the United States in front of the microphone. And like once I'm there, like I'm tapped in, like there's no stress. We're going to have a conversation that contributes to whatever the event is, the context of the event, however different many modes we're capturing the content, whether it be for like posting afterwards and to like have a live in-person experience. Whatever platform it is, I'm going to make sure that I serve to the objectives of all the organizations involved. Like it's just how I click. But like in the midst of that, I think what's the grounding aspect is like people, like connections, like human to human. Because I could be in the crib by myself all day in front of emails and in front of my journal, in front of my scheduler, in front of, you know, my calendars and feel manic as hell. But as soon as I pick up the phone and call somebody or I go somewhere and I tap in with a person, it's like, oh, like, okay, I remember. You know, I remember. I get it now. You're like, that makes sense. You know, so to be able to come on this platform and share these things, like this is almost alchemizing my experience for me. This is like alchemizing it into what may potentially be the solution. Who knows? Would like to be continued. Like I'll keep you all updated. But having this platform, knowing that I'm not just sharing in a room by myself, but I'm sharing with others in a way that may plant the seed for, and you know, not to get like super morbid, but like it's on my spirit. Like, you know, my guy that passed away, like who knows what happens, right? But it's like this thing can be replayed over and over and over again. And regardless of like if it worked out for me or if like I turned it into something that like really served me, like this could be the seeds that like I plant to be able to serve others for like forever, you know? So yeah, and I appreciate the space for real. And I appreciate you, Liz, for, you know, because transparency, openness, honesty, like it's like it can be a scary thing, you know. So the people are that which build the safety of the space. Because there's some spaces where it's like, I don't know. I'm a disclosure guy though. Like I'm probably gonna disclose everywhere I go. But there's some spaces where it's like, you know, I have to discern because I don't know how safe it is here. You know, like I don't know how much you'd understand, and this is just a real understanding space. So
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And I remember in that conversation, I don't know if you were going there to this place with the how good we are at things. I got really caught up in my hair toss, but I remember one thing you said is, you know, that you were, I don't know, it was almost I don't know what the word you used. It was like a comparison. I think you were talking about comparison being the thief of joy and kind of assuming that, you know, in those moments where you're alone with your emails and you're, you know, trying to get projects done and you haven't talked to people in a while, you're just sure that everybody else is, you know, I don't know if you're picturing me being like so unbelievably productive and, you know, maybe I am being in that moment, you know what I mean? But just assuming that everybody else has it all together. And
yeah, you can say it. I said that like I was jealous. Like sometimes like I compare myself to like somebody like you who is described as self-identifies as somebody that experiences, you know, ADHD, with diagnosed ADHD like I am. But it's like, why don't I have the get the emails done ADHD? Like, why don't I have the the organizational ADHD? Like, what is going on with me? You know, but then like the way you flipped it and was like, yeah, but I mean, I see you show up in different ways that, you know, and I didn't want to say that you like you have to, I can't say, you know what I'm saying? But you said you show up in ways that I would like to be able to show up too.
Yep.
And that made me like, I don't know, that was another insight for me yesterday where it's like, oh yeah, I do I do have these strengths.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the ability to be able to do the stuff that I can do, and how easy it comes.
Yeah. Yeah. And assuming somebody else has got it together in ways that you don't, it's also like, you're just making assumptions. You're just thinking that, it's just a mean thing that our brains do to ourselves, is just thinking that somebody else is experiencing anything that there's no way for us to know about. And you're pretty awesome, exactly as you are.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And you listening, you are freaking awesome exactly as you are in this very moment, whether you have nodded your head to everything or some things that we've said and have experienced something similar, or shook your head or rolled your eyes, or you just are not even really sure what's going on. We just really appreciate you being here wherever you're in your process. If there's nothing else that you take away, I hope you know that we're celebrating you. I'm so grateful to be in it with you.
Mm-hmm. If you can hear this, we're rooting for you.
Sure are. Yeah. We got this, my friends.
Yeah.
And we did it.
Did we?
We did something.
Did we?
We
we appreciate you all for listening. And I promise this was not like a therapy session that we're going to pass as a podcast episode. We appreciate you all for continuing to be a part of this community. Please share this with somebody if you know that they could benefit from hearing this episode. I know, like, if I wasn't me, like, I would want this episode sent to me. So if you know somebody like me, but it's not me, send this to them because they need it.
Send it to the Bryce in your life, and keep showing up. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next time.
Catch you later.
So now you're excited. Bryce, Liz, how do I get involved with the Phoenix? Well, my friend, it is super simple. We actually have an app. Head over to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, or look in the show notes of this podcast, wherever you're listening to or watching this podcast, and go download the Phoenix app.
The Phoenix app makes it so easy to find classes that are near you, or to access our virtual class schedule where you can hop on from the comfort of your home. You can also join our groups and have a conversation with someone from the Phoenix community from anywhere in the world. Please make sure that you join the podcast group where you can connect with Bryce and I and other listeners. Everything that you need is in the show notes. You can also head to our website at www.thephoenix.org. And maybe while you're there, you click the volunteer tab and get even more involved.